keep the SA economy buoyant despite these tariffs. We'll also take a look at the latest business confidence monitor coming out of Nigeria, a look at the sectors that have contributed towards its growth. Also a look at Johannesburg Treasury, with the executive mayor of Johannesburg, Dada Morero, been given a rather stern letter coming out of the finance minister, Enoch Godongwana. We'll find out more about the contents of that note. It's gone exactly 8 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. You're most welcome to interact with us on the various social media platforms. On X, Instagram and YouTube, you'll find us at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook, we are at Channel Africa.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
We begin here this morning as trade relations between South Africa and the United States continue to decline. The Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, says the country is now diversifying its trade partners and exploring alternative markets, including China. Lamola noted that the impact on the economy is expected to be minimal, around 0.2% of South Africa's GDP growth. It is estimated that 30,000 jobs are at risk. He emphasized that the country's economic future remains resilient. The minister was speaking during a media briefing in Johannesburg, South Africa, alongside officials from the Department of Trade and Industry. Channel Africa's economics reporter, Innocent Simosa, has more.
The United States is South Africa's third trading partner. However, relations have soured in recent years, most notably when the country was hit hard by the 30% tariff imposed under US President Donald Trump. Now South Africa is seeking to diversify its trade markets. Ronald Lamola, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, says efforts are underway to explore alternative economic partnerships.
South Africa isn't just a trading partner. We are a major investor in the US, with our companies sustaining American jobs. Similarly, over 600 US companies in South Africa contribute to our industrial growth and create employment. Our goal is to preserve and grow this mutual beneficial relationship. Impact of the tariffs. The uncertainty of the new tariffs is already incorporated into economic projections. For example, various economists estimated that it may shave off 0.2% of South Africa's economic growth. The reduction in growth from the 30% tariffs depends on a number of factors, including our ability to find alternative markets.
While exemptions have been granted for copper, stainless steel and energy products, South Africa disagrees with how the trade deficit is being calculated. It's estimated that 30,000 jobs are at risk. Minister Ronald Lamola says they are working closely with the Department of Labor to address potential job losses.
It should be noted, however, that 85% of South Africa's exports remain exempted from the tariffs. All applicable exemptions published in the previous US executive order are said to remain in force, and these exemptions covers products such as copper, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, lumber articles, certain critical minerals, stainless steel scrap, and energy products.
While acknowledging the challenges, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Pakstau, highlighted that the situation presents an opportunity to further strengthen the African Continental Free Trade Area.
With regards to the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, we are working with our colleagues in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. As indicated earlier, we have also ratified various protocols. We are accelerating work to address what are some of the niggly issues that need resolution, including issues on rules of origin with regards to the auto sector, clothing and textile. So there's a lot of work that we're doing in relation to the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. So certainly I think that we should be able to make progress. There is a realization amongst colleagues that in fact it is important that we address what are the impediments to the implementation.
As tensions with the United States continue to reshape South Africa's trade landscape, government officials remain focused on safeguarding jobs and securing new partnerships. For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg.
It is exactly 13 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. In just a moment, our focus turns to Nigeria.
Broadcasting in 5 different languages, connecting the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Now, the latest Business Confidence Monitor, the BCM, for June 2025 has shown that Nigeria's Business Performance Index has maintained positive momentum for 6 consecutive months in 2025. The manufacturing sector has emerged as the biggest contributor to this growth, driven by robust output in textiles, cement and plastic, as well as rubber products. The Nigerian Economic Summit Group, the NESG, says the growth shows that businesses are adjusting better to prevailing economic realities and are cautiously optimistic about prospects. For more on this, we joined on the line by Patrick Ochoga, the chairman of Correspondents Chapel of Nigeria Union of Journalists in Edo State, Nigeria, and correspondent for Leadership newspaper. A very good afternoon to you, Patrick. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Yeah, good afternoon to you too.
So we're looking at the latest BC monitor, and what are the factors that attributed to the rise in the current index in May of 2025?
Yes, I think what we are beginning to experience presently as regards to your question is that the government is trying to attract foreign investments where people can come and invest in the Nigerian economy, look at some of the potentials for investment. And I think the government is equally focusing on building infrastructure, that will create that environment for foreign investors to come and put in their money. Be that as it may, I think the Nigerian people are more that people begin to see the direct impact on their lives. Beyond government dishing out and all that, the Nigerian populace wants to feel the positive impact where the common man can easily afford, the basics of life, so like we all know, the present government is just about barely over 2 years in office. Some of the laudable programs and ideas they have are yet to begin to have that direct impact.
And
yes,
it does indeed, Patrick, does take time in order for these economic adjustments to start reflecting in the lives of the ordinary citizen. But when we look at the BCM, we are seeing some rather significant improvements in the areas of manufacturing, non-manufacturing, trade, agriculture, as well as the services sectors. But the manufacturing sector quite specifically emerged as the top performer. What measures were put in place in this particular sector that have led to this increase in performance?
Yeah, like I said, basically developing infrastructure, are beginning to get that attention. Government is beginning to create that enabling environment where prospective investors can come and invest, like tax rebates. We're beginning to see some tax rebates for some major investors, and governments are beginning to look at where, in the aspects of power, generation. We all know that power is very key. So governments are beginning to encourage investors to put in money in that sectors by encouraging them to invest in that aspect. So that, for me, it's one positive sign. It's a big plus for the government. And like I said, the government is trying to create that enabling environment
And
that
how
will,
successful are they actually being, Patrick? I mean, you mentioned, for example, trying to stabilize the electricity supply. Be that as it may, that still remains one of the key structural hurdles within the manufacturing sector. From electricity supply to a shortage of raw materials. There's still the high import tariffs, escalating inflation. All of those are major threats. And if they're not addressed, what impact will they have on the sector and the business performance? You did mention that, yes, some progress has been made, but is it enough? And is it at a rate and at a pace that will contribute positively to the growth of the sector?
Come again?
You mentioned that, yes, progress has been made in some of these areas, but is it enough? And is it being implemented at a rate that is going to be of a positive contribution to the manufacturing sector?
Yes, progress have been made, no doubt. But more importantly, government need to address the issue of corruption. Government need to be transparent. Government need to be open, so that some of these positive idea can really come to fruition. But for me, more importantly, government need to focus more on building infrastructure. Government need to address the issue of insecurity, beyond having laudable ideas, beyond the good intended policy, this issue, particularly security, corruption, and transparency in governance needs to be addressed for these things to really have a direct impact it was intended to survive.
Patrick Ochoga, thank you very much for your insights this afternoon as we look at the latest business confidence monitor coming out of Nigeria for June 2025. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's Patrick Ochoga, is the chairman of Correspondence Chapel of Nigeria, a union of journalists in Edo State, Nigeria. Takes us to exactly 20 minutes after 4 p.m.
The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Young couples or young people that are getting married, we often hear of divorces, that they're getting divorced, and it's quite worrying because when we attend these weddings, we want to see these people flourish and celebrate 30-year anniversaries. What do you think is the main challenge that is facing newlyweds?
We say that tell me how you were raised and I'll tell you how you love. So when we see people getting married, that's not where the relationship actually starts. The relationship starts with how you were raised, what you were familiar with, because we are attracted to what we are familiar with. If you don't have a background where love was prominent, where love was authentic, it's going to be very difficult for you to manufacture that in later life. So our upbringing has something to do with it.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa in business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 21 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. Businesses in the Eastern Cape, South Africa, expressed concern over the 30% tariffs imposed by the United States on the country's exports. Export-driven sectors such as the automotive industry are expected to be affected, sparking fears of possible job losses. The automotive sector, along with agriculture, are seen as the backbone of the Eastern Cape's economy. Abongile Yankees filed this report.
The U.S.'s looming trade tariffs are expected to have dire effects on the Eastern Cape's economy. Companies in the automotive sector were already under pressure prior to the announcement, with Mercedes-Benz already implementing short-time and production cuts. Although authorities have announced plans to intervene, the business sector remains concerned. The CEO of the Bodakai Business Chamber, Lizelle Maurice, explains.
The impact could be potentially job losses and the ripple effect that it will have on everything else. Because when people are laid off or when people lose their jobs, it means there's no income, which means there's no access money in all the other sectors as well, So we are concerned. So we want to really, we remain hopeful. We're concerned, optimistically hopeful. That Donald Trump or President Trump will do what he did to Lesotho, when he reduced the tariffs from 50% to 15%.
Residents have weighed in on the matter, saying it will have dreadful effect on their livelihoods.
The 30% is going to be too much for us as a developing country. We can't afford, actually, right now we are under a lot of strain when it comes to our finances. So with that in mind, so we are in deep trouble. So I don't know what happened, why he came to that, Donald Trump came to that stand that he says that he's going to increase that tariffs.
Another East London resident has pleaded with the Trump administration to reverse the decision.
Donald, please be gracious. Think of all of us, and you are actually not benefiting South Africans on the street, and it's us who are going to suffer the most about it.
The South African government says it's continuing its engagements with the US on the matter. Abongile Yankees, SABC News, East London.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, channel 628.
It is exactly 24 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Now, it has been reported that South Africa's Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has given the executive mayor of the country's richest city, which is Johannesburg, Dada Morero, 2 weeks to put in place a plan to stem wasteful spending. The city of Johannesburg manages a budget of around $5 billion, but it has long-running issues with service delivery. These related to water, infrastructure and electricity. For more on this, we joined on the line by the Democratic Alliance's Joburg caucus leader, Belinda Kaiser Echwazogu. A very good afternoon to you, Belinda. Good to have you with us.
Good afternoon, Thami, and good afternoon to the viewers. Listeners, sorry.
Well, I do understand. It does go both ways, doesn't it? Talking about this letter, have you seen a copy of it?
Yes, I have seen a copy of the letter, and it's quite daunting and scathing in terms of the ultimatum the minister is giving the mayor. But we are relieved that at least National Treasury is starting to see some of the concerns raised by the Democratic Alliance caucus in the city of Joburg about what is happening in the city.
And what is happening in the city for our listeners across the globe and the continent?
What I can tell you is the minister is raising serious concerns about the lack of consequence management for fruitless and wasteful and irregular expenditure. Is also threatening to withhold funding if some of these issues of consequence management is not attended to. And we have raised these concerns consistently with the mayor, and also we've taken it to COCTA as well because we believe that the Auditor General's findings is highlighting what we have raised not only in the committees, in the Section 79 committees which do oversight, but also in letters to both the Executive Mayor and to the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister and the MEC as well. So he's raising exactly the same issues that we have consistently raised. In fact, the minister is also talking about the fact that the mayor must give a plan about what he will do to rectify the situation and also do consequence management on both officials and councillors. And in fact, the Democratic Alliance in Johannesburg has requested for lifestyle audits to be done on both heads of department and senior officials within the city heading up departments, and also to hold councillors who are voting for irregular decisions that are declared unlawful, unconstitutional, and invalid in a court of law, for them to be held accountable for those kind of decisions as well, and that had not been done. So we're glad that the minister is also now raising the same concerns that we have raised consistently.
For a better understanding of wasteful expenditure, this would be resources spent in a way that yields little value, where you spend but you don't see the fruit of what it is that you've spent for, and money's being allocated and no benefits or outcomes seen of that. Could you give us some key examples of that in the city?
One of the examples, for example, is that, I don't know if you recall, a few months back, the Democratic Alliance had questioned the unlawful appointments in the city, and we have also questioned the controversial VIP protection policy. And both these items that was voted for in council, when we taken it to court, the Democratic Alliance, the court agreed with the Democratic Alliance, and actually these two items were declared unlawful, unconstitutional, and invalid and set aside. Now, you need to look at the litigation cost that had been put in defending a decision that had eventually been declared unlawful, unconstitutional, and invalid, and then set aside. We have yet to even get a full determination of those costs from the executive mayor. We've asked this question, but just to give you an example, those are some of these decisions that could have been avoided because it was raised in council. We asked them to withdraw some of these items because it could cause wasteful expenditure or irregular expenditure, and eventually was declared unconstitutional in a court of law. So all that money for the litigation could have been used towards something else within those departments where they're at. So those are the kind of things that you can look at wasteful expenditure because it could have been avoided.
So looking at solutions as we round up, Belinda, what are the immediate corrective actions that can actually be put in place to avert the worst case scenario, which the finance minister highlighted, which is also a possible withholding of funding?
What we have said, within committees is that there must be consequence management at the time when this is identified. And the mayor would need to provide the minister with a plan on how to hold officials accountable in terms of investigations, perhaps to see how they can explain what caused this irregular and fruitless expenditure. And also, the mayor should also then ensure that some of these monies can possibly be recouped. If you recall, there is a court precedent, I believe it's in the Eastern Cape, there's a court in the Eastern Cape where even officials who have left the employ of the state were held accountable and were ordered to pay back some of this money. And we're saying in a DA government, we would obviously not only get some of the suppliers that was involved blacklisted, we would obviously ensure that the criminal charges are where there is found in the course of the investigation, where there is found that there's maladministration or financial misconduct, we would then also ensure that criminal charges are being laid against these officials and the money is recovered from these officials. And lastly, we would agree with the Minister of Cocta at the moment that the mayor also include a mandatory lifestyle audit for senior officials
Belinda,
within the city of Johannesburg. Yeah.
Belinda, we'll leave it at that for this afternoon. Yeah. Thank you very much for that update.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's the Democratic Alliance Johannesburg Caucus leader Belinda Kaiser Echozonjoku, taking us to exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African time. Let's head over now to the markets desk, where Chanduko Ligege is standing by with your latest market indicators.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Good afternoon. These are your financial indicators. $1 is trading at 18 Rand 4 in South Africa, Botswana 13 Pula 41, Namibia 18 Namibian dollars 4, Zambia 22 Kwacha 87. In Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling 52, Ethiopia 138 bih 7, Uganda 3,000 shilling 559, Tanzania 2,000 shilling 530. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 532. Egypt, the dollar is 48 Egyptian pound 61. Tunisia, 2 dinar 89. Algeria, 130 dinar 14. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 85. Angola, the dollar is 912 kwanza. The Congolese franc is 2,870 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is at $3,375, platinum at $1,332 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $68.15 a barrel. That is all from me. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And for the business of sport, here is Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you so much, Thami. Very good afternoon from the sports desk. Let's start with this story, right? So, the Confederation of African Football, CAF President Dr. Patrice Motsepe has revealed the rationale behind the significant increase in prize money for the 2024 African Nations Championship CHAN tournament, raising the total pool to $10.4 million. Now, the 8th edition of this year's tournament, which is currently underway, currently featuring 19 teams, CAF confirmed a 75% increase in total prize money compared to the last edition, with the eventual champion set to earn $3.5 million, up from a previous $2 million. Now, the runner-up will receive $1.2 million, with the third and fourth place teams taking home $700 as well as $600,000 respectively. Each of the four losing quarterfinalists will earn $450,000, while team finishing third or fourth in their group will pocket either $300,000 or $200,000, depending, of course, on the group size, with the bottom place sides in 5-team groups set to receive $200,000 each. CAF President Motsepe said the prize money increase aligns with the organization's strategic efforts to promote as well as develop football across the continent. Meanwhile, Kenya President William Ruto says the players will be rewarded handsomely for their participation in this year's CHAN tournament.
Every game that you win, killer player 1 million, total 40 million. If you qualify at the quarters, same, total 60 million. If you qualify at the semis, 70 million. If you qualify at the finals, 90. You're the total 600 and something million.
Onto this story now. Dutch Foundation Justice for Players is preparing a mass legal claim against FIFA as well as 5 national football associations, seeking billions of US dollars in compensation for an estimated 100,000 professional footballers. Now, the foundation announced its intention to file the lawsuit with the Midden-Nederland District Court, asserting that FIFA's transfer regulations have unfairly restricted players' ability to earn income since 2002. So this collective action is made possible by the landmark court ruling in favour of former Real Madrid player Diarra, which also deemed FIFA rules unlawful. Alongside FIFA, the Dutch, the German, French, Belgian, as well as Danish football associations are named in the lawsuit, in addition to 31 associations that have been notified of the case. And finally, Chelsea have completed a $57 million deal to sign Ajax defender Jorel Hato. Now, the 19-year-old has finalised a 7-year contract with the Blues after a medical in London over the weekend. The Netherlands international has also become now the 8th signing of the current transfer window for the FIFA Club World Cup champions. Hato is Chelsea's 8th addition to the squad during this transfer window, with their spending so far reaching a combined sum of more than $235 million. Well, that's a wrap from the sports desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, simply send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa in Business. Africa in Business delivers key insights and real-time updates on Africa's growing markets with Thami Ngubeni. The African perspective on Channel Africa.
Channel Africa. It is exactly 4:38 Central African Time. Still on your agenda for this afternoon's Africa in Business, a look at a platform that facilitates the meeting of business and diplomacy. It's the Embassy's Business Fair and Conference that's set to take place on the 8th and the 9th of September. We'll also be joined this afternoon by FNB senior economist Siphamandla Mkhwanazi as we look at the latest business and financial market developments. You're most welcome to interact with us on the various social media platforms on X, Instagram and YouTube. You'll find us at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook, we are on Channel Africa.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The second edition of the Embassy's Business Fair and Conference is set to take place on the 8th and the 9th of September. This is an event where business meets diplomacy. The Embassy's Business Fair and Conference positions embassies not merely as diplomatic institutions, but also as dynamic gateways to investment, innovation and international trade. Sihle Dube, who is the event organizer, says the event is a catalyst for rewriting Africa's economic narrative by turning diplomatic missions into active trade bridges. Sihle joins us on the line to unpack this further. Good to have you with us this afternoon and welcome to Africa in Business, Sihle.
Good afternoon, Thami. How are you doing, my sister?
I'm very well, thank you, and really excited about the second edition of the business fair between business and embassies. So this is the second one. Could you tell us more about the event as well as the objectives behind it? And perhaps if you could tell us about the very first one that took place and the lessons that came from that.
Thank you so much. And firstly, I would like to say good afternoon to the listeners at large. Yes, we are at the second edition, and as you've explained that we are using the diplomatic platform, and in terms of that, they've got trade and investment initiatives, and they've got trade and investment attaches within the embassy, and commercial advisors within the embassy. They are there for a specific reason. So we are, as part of the ecosystem, to make sure that they are part of what we do in terms of advocating for market access for our own locally manufactured products by our own local SMMEs, which is authentic and natural. And secondly, in terms of attracting investment initiatives into the country, we talk tourism infrastructure, we talk multiple infrastructure projects, and also we talk expansion into manufacturing and industrialization. So the embassies have got the gateway into these funders and investors, and at the same time, they sit with the vast distribution networks in their in-countries so that we are able to trade outbound and in-country, and vice versa. Themselves, they also can trade in South Africa with the business leaders in the country.
And how many countries and which countries specifically are you expecting to attend? And perhaps also just a summary of the businesses that will be there.
Just a rundown of the countries. We're looking at regions. We can classify them under regions and zones like the European countries and Caribbean, Asian, Africa at large. As you know, we are repositioning Africa and unlocking trade amongst Africa and international trade to ensure that there is more growth in Africa amongst ourselves, to establish markets amongst ourselves as well. And then in terms of key brands that we are working with, one of them, I'm right here at the airport, I just arrived, it's South African Airways, who is the key airline partner. And there will be a booking code to travel using the discounted rates, and also they've come on board to offer embassies themselves a discounted rate as well for domestic flights and other international and Africa regions that they cover. Then we go on to say we've got government initiatives that support SMMEs on board. They are also coming on board. Africa for the Africa Initiative and international markets, we've got Gauteng Tourism Authority that have got the market access program for our own small businesses that have got tourism products and services. They do support them. And we've got the likes of the SEDFAs, the list goes on, and the DTICs. But currently, we are having long-term partnerships with organizations that support small businesses to gain market access in Africa and international.
So you have projected, Sihle, a $20 million worth of deals coming out of this particular fair and conference. That's a rather ambitious goal that you've set for yourself. How do you intend to achieve that?
It is very achievable, Thami. For starters, if we look at the investment arena, my apologies for the background noise. Like I said, I just arrived at the airport.
Look, Sihle, you are a woman in business. We expect no less from you.
Yes. Yeah, so let me go back to the investment initiative. We talk about 25 or over 25 projects for the youth-led and women-led businesses to be pitched during the event, so that they do get access to the funding that must amount to that in overall. Because these projects range from ICT, innovation, digital. The project range from also manufacturing of a product that has got an authentic market. Let's say you do get a market. Let's say you get a market in the Asian market. Now we need an investor that comes through to say, I will invest towards the establishment and expansion of the manufacturing facility so that you meet capacity, because you still need to meet capacity and meet compliancy. So all those amounts will add up to the investment initiative.
So you're also planning on pushing SMEs to gain direct access to markets. I think you've explained a little bit about that as far as women and youth are concerned. Tell us about how this is structured and the process that SMEs have to go through in order to have meetings set up, whether it's between embassy and the businesses, or business to business, or even embassy to embassy.
Thank you so much. That's a valid key question. Firstly, we are expecting export-ready products, product that can attract a market, authentic and unique, and we will be sharing the product listing, and we will go through a vetting process. Right now, the registration platform is open, embassiesbfc.com. The reason why we open so early is so that we go through this vetting process that you're talking about, so that we can then enable the online diary, which is also we've got in the form of a mobile app, where we can link the key embassies to the small businesses and also the investors and funders that have registered. We can start matchmaking them, because we've got sectors as education. We've got Crimson, spelled as CRIMSON University. They are an international university that provides even gap years for our own youth, let's say learners, post-matric, to have opportunities to get further studies, and thereafter maybe have a 1 or 2, 3 years for internship. Then they can come back to the country, or they are integrated in those countries. But it would be good to bring the skill back home. This is what we're advocating for, that we're saying it's also a platform for information exchange and resource sharing. And then we also have the agriculture sector, which we are also looking at vetting and having breakaway sessions for, and the tourism sector as well. We will be hosting about 40 hosted buyers, international, and also about 15 around South Africa, including the tourism sector. The buyers will be broken down into business people that have got an impact into the outcomes that we have, as you've listed, the 20 million investment into these projects. So I think, long story short, we are vetting the process via the registrations that are coming through. Then we'll get back to the individuals and position them as per the sector and as per the breakaway section and as per the meeting facilities that will be provided.
Well, Sihle, you've got less than a month to go. Well, just about a month to go, just under a month to go before the Embassy's Business Fair and Conference kicks off in Pretoria. That's the city of Tshwane in South Africa. We thank you so much for your time and wishing you all the best.
Thank you so much, Thami. Have a great day.
Have a great one. Thank you. That's Sihle Dube. She's the Embassy's Business Fair and Conference event organizer. If you perhaps believe that you will benefit from this, $20 million worth of deals are projected to be made, feel free to visit their website. You can just punch in Embassy's Business Fair and Conference and it will pop up with great ease. And it's www.embassiesbfc.com. It's exactly 4:48.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Sport depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 10 minutes to 5 p.m. Central African time. We turn our attention now to the latest business and financial market developments with Siphamandla Mkhwanazi, FNB senior economist. A very good afternoon to you. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you too. Thanks for having me.
Perhaps let's start off with a reflection on the SARB decision as well as the outlook for any further cuts.
Right. So the latest decision was expected by markets, a 25 bips cut. And this is on the back of a rather muted reaction of markets to the announcement of tariffs by the US. You would recall that in March, this is one of the things that presented an element of heightened volatility, heightened uncertainty. But post the announcement, we've seen this time around that I think there is some sort of a market fatigue, that markets are relatively tired of hearing this tariff story. So that may have, mitigated some of the fear that the Reserve Bank might have heard, which allowed them to focus on South Africa's domestic developments. And if you look at the domestic developments, interest rate, inflation is relatively low at the moment, and they thought that they should take the opportunity to reduce interest rates. So a welcome decision, one that the markets had anticipated.
And just picking up on your comment there regarding the inflation rates, your stance on a 3% inflation target.
Right. And then they would rather say they're careful not to call it a target as yet. You would recall that the current target is 3 to 6%. They call it a preference. And this is where, you find this policy turf between the National Treasury and the Reserve Bank coming through, with National Treasury's priorities at the moment being that they want to get the fiscal policy right, whereas the Reserve Bank, on the other hand, want to use this opportunity of low interest rate environment to and to ensure that inflation remains at those low levels. Now, there is a short-term cost at the Reserve Bank, as alluded to, and the short-term cost is lower growth, at least in the short term. However, there is a benefit in the longer term. So it's just a matter of the time period differences between what the Reserve Bank wants to do and what National Treasury wants to do. National Treasury would rather have to see growth picking up much more in the short term to reduce those fiscal pressures, whereas the Reserve Bank is more looking towards the longer term the Reserve Bank is taking more of a longer term view.
We have now reached that point, Siphamandla, where there's greater certainty as far as the direction with US tariffs are concerned, with 30% having been the confirmed tariff for South Africa. What is the picture for South Africa in 6 months' time as the impact of these tariffs will start manifesting, and it is going to be a delayed impact in about 6 months' time? We're going to see that in the country. What do you forecast regarding that?
Yeah. So look, we have already started to see the impact coming through. Firstly, from the market perspective, the markets have the advantage of reacting quite immediately. We've already seen the impact it has had on sentiment. When there's heightened uncertainty, businesses and consumers alike tend to want to hold back until there's much more clarity before they come back and engage. So we've seen that coming through in terms of the level of investment in this economy. So part of it we've already seen. Now, the markets that we are really concerned about are two. So it is the automotive sector and the agricultural sector. Those markets have a greater exposure to the US market. Now, other markets such as the mining sector, those ones don't necessarily, they wouldn't struggle to find alternative markets, and we've already seen some of those goods, some of those merchandises being diverted to other markets. So what we will see is it will weigh on GDP growth. However, the impact is not that great at an aggregate level. However, when you look at it at a micro level, there are certain communities, there are certain local communities that are going to be affected by this. So these are communities that whose economies are highly reliant on car production for the purpose of exporting to the US, such as the north of Pretoria in Roslyn, or Tabetha, that produce Mercedes-Benz cars. Or when you think of the agricultural sector, there are certain towns in the Northern Cape and certain towns in the Northwest, in Western Cape, that produce citrus that is exported to the US. So at an aggregate level, the impact in numbers term, 0.1 to 0.4 of GDP is not that much. However, at a local level, you expect it to have a much greater impact.
And your thoughts and reflections on the gross foreign exchange reserves?
Right. So we've seen gross foreign reserves in the last couple of months picking up a little bit. We're sitting at just over $68 billion. This is determined by the strength of our currency and gold prices. And we've seen gold prices in the last couple of months picking up a little bit. And just for the benefit of your viewers, this tells us about the ability of the economy to cover its import costs and the ability of reserve banks to intervene in international markets when there is a shock to the currency. So at these levels, it gives us a level of comfort that there are sufficient resources for the Reserve Bank to stabilize the rand should there be external shocks.
Siphamandla Ngubeni, always a pleasure. Thank you for the latest business and financial market developments this afternoon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That's Siphamandla Ngubeni, FNB senior economist, taking us to exactly 4:56 Central African time. Yes, we are wrapping up as far as Africa in business is concerned, and we're handing the reins over now to Vue d'Afrique. And aujourd'hui, we are with Annika Longe. Bonjour, Annika.
Bonjour, Thami. C'est Annie Kalonji.
Annie Kalonji. There you go. Trying.
Alors, chers auditeurs de Channel Africa, tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique, il s'agira Du Cameroun, le Conseil constitutionnel qui se penche ce lundi sur les 35 des 70 candidats recalés pour la course à la présidentielle du 12 octobre prochain. Au Nigeria, on parlera des infirmières des hôpitaux publics qui suspendent leur grève d'avertissement de 7 jours. Et également en Côte d'Ivoire, nous allons parler des responsables du parti de Laurent Gbagbo qui ont été arrêtés suite à des heurts survenus le week-end dernier. Donc, c'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique.
Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup, Annika. That's how we as Africa in Business come to the end of it for this Monday afternoon. Thank you to our fabulous team, our producer, Mabo Bolok, our technical producer, as well as on social media. We've got Talent Butelezi this afternoon. News desk, Onele Nzinzi, Economics desk, Chanduko Legege, and on sport, Masiburi Makura. For Africa in Business, I'm Thami Ngubeni. This is Channel Africa.